Guys, good evening. Good evening. Welcome to our live training class. We have a really special training class. We've never spoken about it before in this way. We've never really formally addressed the topic of despair for marriages that have absolutely no chance. And it's not my business to diagnose if a marriage does or doesn't. It's certainly impossible to do it in a video for sure, but that's not the goal. The goal over here is to talk about, let's go to the worst possible scenario. What if you're 100% sure? Like you're 100% clear that your marriage has no chance. Now, we're not going to get into how to figure that out. It's really beyond the scope of this video. It really is. But let's say you have come to that conclusion for whatever reason. Tonight's training class is going to be an eye-opener for you. And there's a lot that you're going to gain from it. And just make sure you can see me okay. Can you see me okay? Can you hear me okay? Let me know in the comments. Right? Okay, great. I see a thumbs up. All right, beautiful. What if, like I said, you're 100% sure that your marriage is over, your relationship is over, you feel you've done the best you can to salvage it, to recapture your wife's heart, to reconnect with her emotionally and intimately. And it's just, you just at the end of your rope, at the end of your tether, you just can't go on, or you feel there's no point to go on because regardless of what you say or do, you're not going to be able to get her back. Okay. And that's your assessment. It's your opinion. I'm not here to argue with it. It's really not my job. Certainly not in this video. We're going to talk to that reality. There are some marriages that cannot be turned around. What can you do about it? What should you do about it? How should you approach it? What is the correct way of approaching it? All right, I'm going to share my opinion, my philosophy, how to approach it. And if it resonates with you, cool. If not, that's also cool. I'm sure you'll find somebody else that has another take on it. Now, I've seen some posts in this Facebook group where you have guys coming here and they'll even hang around for a couple of months, sometimes a couple of years. And I don't really hear from them. I don't interact with them. They're just doing their own thing, just watching some stuff. And then they suddenly say, I've given up on my marriage. And I'm not judging that. Let's say legit, there is nothing to work on in the marriage. Let's say, all right. But what I very often find, okay, reading their posts, and especially if these guys have been in touch with me, because some guys have been in touch and some guys have not, especially the guys who have been in touch with me and keep me posted. And I track it when I'm in touch with them. I see more often than not, almost every single time, they have not only given up on the marriage, but in a subtle way, without officially saying it, they've given up on themselves. A part of them died together with the marriage, and a piece of them is stuck there. And even if they want to make believe that they're moving on, they're very often stuck in the past, in the relationship. It may be as a result of guilt that they have over the marriage, guilt that they're aware that there are certain things that they could have done better, or certain things they wish they avoided. It could be they feel stuck in the relationship because of confusion that they have surrounding what happened in the relationship, or what didn't happen, or why they can't figure it out. And it's so easy, and it's attractive, and it's tempting to just fall into despair, fall into pain, or run away from the pain. Say, I'm just moving on, making believe you can move on, when in the reality, not only is there no growth by just moving on and just sinking into despair, but you also are virtually bound statistically to repeat the same mistake in your next important relationship. And not only there's an incredibly high chance of repeating it in your next intimate relationship, you're probably in one way or another experiencing some of the issues in your marriage also in other important personal and professional relationships in your life. And today's live stream is going to be to talk about it, the importance of accurately understanding what went on in your marriage and what didn't go on, what were the real issues. And I hope you guys get a lot from this, okay? Feel free to check in the comments, post your questions, your comments, your big takeaways, because I promise you this is going to be an eye-opener for a bunch of you, okay? Here's the thing. Let's move on to the next part of the class. Of course, every half-decent guy wants to do everything he can to turn around his marriage. But we're talking now about not just about learning about what happened in your marriage for the purpose of trying to save it, because tonight's live stream is beyond that. It's about what happens if you're not even trying to save it anymore. Here's the deal. And this is a very important piece of information, guys. Listen carefully. The best, most important information about yourself is going to come from your marriage, even your past marriage. I'll say that again. The most critical pieces of information about you, your personality, your skill set, your communication skills, your emotional intelligence skills will come from your most important relationship in your life. Your biggest successes will come from there. Your biggest sorrows will come from there. Your biggest joy, your biggest frustration, and your biggest learning curves. Your biggest growths, spiritually speaking, psychologically speaking. And if somebody moves on from a marriage, even if they've given up on it, but they have a real level of bitterness or unresolved pain or confusion or guilt, guaranteed, not only it's going to affect your future, it's already affecting your present reality, whether you are aware of it or not. Okay? Because the patterns, the most important skills that a person needs, a human being needs, and the most important patterns that will exist in your relationship will happen in your marriage. Because that's where you're going to be tested the most. That's where you're designed to grow the most. And that's where you'll feel the most pain when you fail, or the most joy if you succeed. And if you don't identify those patterns, if you don't understand those patterns, if you cannot see those patterns while they're small and easy to fix, it's going to repeat itself. It's going to haunt you. It's going to repeat itself in future relationships. And you will repeat the same heartache and despair, which is why the divorce statistic for first marriages, it keeps fluctuating, but the divorce statistic for first marriages is about 54%. For second marriages, it's 60%. And the fascinating thing is a lot of guys go into a second relationship saying, well, I've been married for 15, 17 years, and I now have learned what to be careful of in the future. I've learned about myself, and I now know how to have a great marriage. And they mean it sincerely. They may have even gone to therapy or counseling or read a bunch of marriage books, but the reality is that the statistical chance of divorce actually increases. And with the third marriage, it goes up to 71%. And the reason for that is because there are certain very specific patterns that occur in an intimate relationship that are very important to identify. And if you don't identify, it's gonna get worse till that relationship peters out and unfortunately it falls apart. And then it will repeat itself in the next relationship. And if you actually look, there are quite a few interviews that I've had with other guys in this Facebook group, men who have worked with my clients, my students. And you'll notice some of these guys did not recover their marriages, right? But what they did recover was their life, their love, their leadership, their dignity, their ability to connect deeply with their kids, their ability to attract an incredible woman into their lives, their ability to be completely free of guilt, resentment, and bitterness. And that was done as a result of them working on the marriage. And working on the marriage can sometimes mean working on the marriage, and working on the marriage can sometimes mean taking apart what happened in the marriage for the purpose of personal growth, of personal development, not just becoming a better version of who you are, because that doesn't mean much, but to become a better version specifically with marriage skills in a way that you can then move on and attract and keep a very high quality woman in your life who respects you, appreciates you, wants to love you and serve you and please you without you having to beg or negotiate or compromise. That happened. All right, guys, let me know if you're following me, if this makes sense, and if you relate to anything of what I'm saying so far. That happened. The changes that these guys made, and you can look through the interviews and you'll see some of them, is a result of them looking inside themselves, but not just looking at themselves, but looking at themselves specifically within the marriage and picking up whatever skills and extracting, because like I said, the best information you're going to get will come from your marriage. And I've heard guys say, oh, I learned my lesson. I'm not going to repeat it in the future. It's just not true. I've worked with guys who are in their second and their third marriage, the upper 40s, mid 50s, and they're like, David, I don't understand. I thought I learned what I learned. Why is this repeating? And then we go deeper and we see what are the real issues. And before I get to the next point, it's important to stress, if you don't have these skills within your marriage, I could guarantee you that you're not going to have the quality relationship with your kids that you could have. It is impossible for you to really interact deeply and effectively with another human being, whether it's a coworker, whether it's a boss, whether it's employees, whether you're a top-level manager, whether you own your own company. You're definitely not going to be able to effectively lead your team, because these communication skills, which I call subconscious communication skills, go to the heart of human connection and human interaction and emotional connection. And the greatest area where that's going to happen is, of course, in your marriage, but the other areas will be with your kids, with your parents, and like I said, with your coworkers or employees, depending on what type of, if you're working for someone else or you're the boss. And typically it's when you're boss, that's when you'll see the biggest challenges. Typically. Let's get into this. When you unpack these patterns and when you unpack these skills, I just want to recap. Not only do you reduce the guilt, because when you don't leave any stone unturned for the purpose of saving your marriage, I can't describe it. There's like a certain freedom that you get. And I've seen my clients go through this, where there's even the guys who were not able to save the marriage, advanced marriage counselors, the guys who've come into the relationship to my help with, their wife was already in an affair and she wasn't even hiding it. If she's not even hiding the affair, that's a higher level of marriage counseling, because usually a woman will try to hide her affair or she'll lie about it. You know what I mean? Or they already sold their house. Or if you already sold your marital home, that's, again, it usually indicates an advanced level of marriage counselor. And there are some times where guys did not turn around their marriage, but I noticed that they suddenly, after learning the skills that I'm about to talk about, they were able to free themselves from guilt. They were able to feel a high level of confidence about themselves and confidence about their future, confidence in their ability to attract another woman, confidence in their ability to interact with their ex in an amazing way. And it was just, the freedom of guilt was tremendous. I didn't even realize that this is something that learning these skills, that learning subconscious communication is going to benefit anyone. But it goes deeper. Like I said, these are solid skills that are related, that are directly connected to your life. You need it whether you like it or not. And the only way to learn it is from your marriage. So let's talk about a couple of these skills. So one of the most fundamental areas that sabotage a husband-wife relationship, and I call this a fundamental symptom of marriage cancer, is that the wife does not feel the unconditional love from the husband. How many of you truly love your wife 100%? Please let me know in the comments. How many of you truly love her or loved her, but she didn't completely feel and trust your love 100%? This is an important question. In my opinion, it's one of the most important questions you can ask when working on a marriage, because if you don't really love your wife, if you don't truly care about her happiness, you're just trying to keep her in your life because of your religious beliefs or because you feel bad for your kids, then my skill set is not for you. Let's just put it very politely. What I have to offer is not for you. You have to truly be in that place. And that's the one thing I cannot give you. I cannot give you love. I can give you a strategy how to recapture love. I cannot make you love your wife 100%. So let me know in the comments, how many of you truly love your wife 100%? And how many of you experience that she doesn't really fully feel it and trust it 100%? Okay. Now, over the years that we have put together, and I started this in my marriage, and it took me God knows how long, but then once I cracked it in my marriage and I helped other guys in their marriages, over the years we put together a tremendous amount of information, but it all pointed towards the same direction, that there are certain things that guys say or do which block their wife from feeling their unconditional love. And it happens accidentally. It happens with the best intentions. Oh my God, we just had a lightning. I hope we don't lose power now. It's because of a pretty intense storm now. But this skill, when the guys were able to look back and say with accurate clarity, wow, all these things, a bunch of things are things I said or did, the way I showed up, which blocked my wife from feeling unconditional love, which is why she maybe felt only 60% of my love or 40% or whatever that number is. That is critical to any type of emotional connection within a relationship, because the moment the love sort of dips, so to speak, or she doesn't feel that unconditional love, what happens is it will make her question everything you do. So even if you do positive things for the marriage, for the relationship, and you do what she says she wants, and you help her run the house, and you're a good provider, and you try to show her affection or tell her how much you love her, that love actually, the more actions you take, you actually could be undermining yourself, because she will feel it to be a form of desperation or controlling or manipulation, even though you don't mean it. This is a very important piece. And when you unblock that skill, and you unlock the skill of, hey, where can I identify blocked love? I guarantee you that will affect you in your work, with your parents, with your kids, even though you're not in charge of loving your employees, but part of communicating, a part of leading, part of effectively bringing the best out of the people you work with, or who work under you, is going to depend on your ability to effectively communicate to them, and in a way that they really see the true you, which leads me to the second point. Another area that a critical skill that guys need to develop, even if you've given up on your relationship, but you need to develop it, because if you don't have it, it's going to sabotage you in the future, is the ability to see yourself from your wife's perspective. Because there's typically a very big gap in marriages that are falling apart, or what I call marriage cancer. There is a big gap between the person who you think you are and the person who your wife thinks you are. And there's a bunch of reasons for that, but getting clarity on that picture is relieving. Getting clarity on the exact picture your wife has of you stuck in her head gives a tremendous amount. First of all, it helps you understand her a little better. And although it may be painful, and it is painful on some level, but it's also very freeing, because you could then bring the best version of you in another relationship, because you understand clearly, hey, when I do these little things, this gets stuck in her head, and she has a hard time getting it out of her head, which is one of the issues in marriage cancer, that a woman will get fixated based on certain events, things you said or did, or experiences in the past, and she has a difficult time or an impossible time getting herself out of it. Now, there are ways to fix it, and in many forms of marriage cancer, you can fix it. But regardless of if you can fix or not fix the marriage, remember, today's live stream is not about fixing the marriage. Regardless of what happens, the actual skill to be able to see yourself from her perspective is unbelievably, in a certain way, it's fun. In the beginning, it's painful, but it's actually very relieving, because you could then bring that to the next relationship. You could then bring it immediately to your workplace, because I can guarantee you that there are parts of you that you think are good and effective and great, but your boss doesn't see it, your coworkers don't appreciate it, or your employees are not following it or respecting it. And that is critical. That is very critical, which is why seeing these patterns, learning it from your marriage, which is the best place, because like I said before, that is a place where it has been the most effective or the most affected, I should say, that's the place that may suffer the most from not having that skill. But when you learn it and you can apply it with your kids, with your coworkers or family and friends, there's something really almost magical about it. Or the ability to understand one of the also very important things to break apart. And when I work with my students, what we work on is trying to understand, like, what are those things that I am doing, that I'm giving up on myself, I'm sacrificing my own opinions, my own needs, that are actually hurting me, and what can I do to avoid that? What can I do to be in a place where my wife actually respects my opinions, is happy to please my needs, my legitimate needs, and happy to just be there for me? Like, how do I live a life with the person I love without having to sacrifice and compromise and give up on my needs and opinions? That's a very important piece. And again, that will vary in what type of marriage counselor you have. But regardless, again, tonight's video, remember guys, we started out with a simple focus. When you understand this, it's guaranteed that this shows up in other relationships, because your marriage is the place where the most strongest problems and pains and communication issues come up, because that's happening not 24/7, but you spend the most time with your wife than with other people. But if it's there, that missing skill to not being able to figure out, hey, where am I sacrificing? Why am I sacrificing? How do I show up in a way that my opinions and needs are respected? How do I behave in a way that she feels my love? How do I behave in a way that I can actually see the picture she has of me, and how do I interact with the picture she has of me stuck in her head? That skill is so vital, because it opens up relationships. It opens up connections. It opens up your ability to influence others in a positive way, and to be more effective regardless of what you do. But again, the bottom line is understanding these patterns is, what is the pattern? Where does it start? How do I fix it when it's small? How do I fix the problem in my marriage when it's small and easy to fix? And again, even if it's too late for your marriage, but knowing that skill for the future is what you need to bring to your next relationship. And the level of confidence it gives is phenomenal, quite frankly. Okay. And I felt like we needed to do this class, because I was seeing these posts again and again in the Facebook group of guys giving up. And I know they're not just giving up on their marriage, they're giving up on a part of themselves. And I felt like it's really important, because typically when a guy gets divorced, he typically on average is going to have about 50 to 60 years ahead of him. I'm talking about the guys in this Facebook group. I'm not talking about guys who get divorced when they're 60, 50, 60, 70. Typically the guys in our Facebook group on the upper 30s, 40s, or maybe low 50s. And so you typically can have 40, 50, or 60 years ahead of you. But if you don't get these skills, these things are going to repeat themselves, definitely. And I just want to recap that. And these skills are so important. I'll tell you something interesting, funny. It's also sad, because I've had guys who worked with me on these skills, and then at a certain point they just fell in love with another woman. And then when their wife turned around, because they had advanced marriage cancer, it took sometimes a year or a year and a half for the wife to turn around and for the wife to say, okay, yes, I do want to reconnect. Let's try again. They said, hey, it's too late. Now, as sad as that is, but I was happy for them, because at that point, that guy already gave his heart to another woman. He already fell in love with someone else. He already used whatever he learned from his marriage to attract and keep an incredible relationship. And no, it was too late for the marriage. But here's the point. Listen carefully. It was too late for the marriage. Many of the times it was too late for the marriage because the guy decided he doesn't want to work on it anymore. And I'm not judging him. I'm not judging them at all. It happened quite a few times with some of my clients. But I'm trying to point out, because they learned those skills, because they developed that ability to see themselves, to see what they're doing or saying, which is blocking their unconditional love from being felt by their wife, by their lover, because they were able to unlock how to identify their wife's true needs and how to not sacrifice and compromise on their own needs, which ended up hurting them. If you keep on sacrificing, it's going to hurt you. And because they had that, they were able to develop another relationship. And because they had another relationship, they were more at the negotiating table, so to speak, with their wife. They weren't at the negotiating table anymore. They were like, I'm done. So by the time their wife stepped up and said, hey, I really want to give it another chance, they said, hey, it's too late. And again, as sad as that is, but that comes from them working on the marriage, comes from them developing these important skills. With that, we're going to wrap up today's class. What I would love to hear from you guys, I'd love to see in the comments, and I will check them. What were your biggest takeaways? Top 3 to 5 distinctions, aha moments, things that you gained from today's class, things that changed your perspective, things that you can take with you and really internalize it in your life, in your thinking at the very least. What moved you? What changed you? I would love to hear and get some feedback from you guys, because this is a topic which is very dear to my heart. And as much as it's important for me to help to save marriages, which is the purpose of this Facebook group, but I've also seen from reality, some guys, by the time they turn around to work in their marriage, it's either going to be too late or it's going to take a long time. And some guys just don't have the stamina to stick around. And as again, I'm not judging them, but it's important, even if you have given up on the marriage, to understand and dissect and put an X-ray through your past marriage, diagnose it, what I call get a blood test, and really get clarity on what was actually going on behind the scenes that messed around with your best intentions. Again, I'd love to hear your feedback, your comments, your aha moments, your biggest takeaways. And with that, we'll end tonight's live class. And I will check your comments, and I'll see you guys next week. Take care.